The fluorescent lights of the hospital corridor hummed, a low, insect-like buzz that seemed to drill directly into the base of my skull. It was the only sound in the world. The rest of the universe had fallen silent the moment the doctor handed me the envelope. I stared at the paper in my hands. It wasn't just paper. It was a demolition order for the life I thought I owned. The text was clinical, black serif font on stark white, but the words swam before my eyes, rearranging themselves into a single, brutal truth. Probability of paternity, 0%. My hand trembled, not with a subtle shake, but with a violent, rhythmic spasm that made the paper rattle like dry leaves in a gale. "Mr. Williams," the doctor said, his voice sounding as if it were coming from underwater, muffled and distorted by the rushing blood in my ears. "I'm sorry. The child is not yours." It felt physical. Not an emotional pang, but a literal, serrated blade twisting between my ribs. I looked through the glass of the delivery room door. Inside, the world was soft, bathed in warm light. Olivia was there. My wife. She was cradling a bundle wrapped in pink, tears of joy streaming down her face, a Madonna in a hospital gown. I remembered the texture of her veil 3 years ago, the way the silk slipped through my fingers, the scent of vanilla and expensive flowers she wore at the altar. She had smiled like an angel then. Now, watching her coo at a stranger's child in her arms, that memory curdled into something sour and rot-smelling. I pushed the door open. The air inside was thick with the smell of milk and sweat. Olivia looked up, her eyes bright, until they locked onto mine. The light died in them instantly, replaced with a flicker of primal animal panic. "Noah?" Her voice wavered, cracking on my name. "What are you doing here?" I didn't speak. I couldn't. I just raised the paper. It felt heavy, like I was holding a lead weight. My voice. It didn't sound like mine. "What is this?" Olivia's face drained of color, turning the shade of old ash. She pulled the baby closer to her chest, using the infant as a shield. "I can explain." "Explain what?" The words tore out of my throat, raw and jagged. "Explain the biology? Explain the math? Or explain how you got tangled up with Ethan next door?" The name hung in the air, toxic. Ethan, the sleazy, middle-aged man who mowed his lawn in undershirts stained with yellow sweat, who looked at women with eyes that felt like greasy fingers. The silence in the room broke. Nurses froze, trays of instruments hovering in midair. The machinery beeped, indifferent to the wreckage. "Noah, listen to me," she pleaded, trying to sit up, wincing as her body remembered the trauma of birth. "Just listen." "Say what?" I stepped closer, the smell of the hospital turning my stomach. "Say how you betrayed me. 3 years, Olivia. I gave you everything. My heart, my soul, the very marrow of my bones, and this is my receipt?" "I didn't sleep with him," she sobbed, the lie so pathetic it almost made me laugh. "Then how did this happen? Osmosis?" I slammed the report down on the bedside table. The sound was like a gunshot. "DNA match, 0%. Is this the surprise you talked about for 9 months? The head nurse, a stern woman named Emma, bustled over, her rubber-soled shoes squeaking in urgent rhythm. "Sir, keep your voice down. This is a delivery room." I took a breath. It shuddered in my chest. I looked at Olivia, really looked at her, and realized I was looking at a stranger. "We're getting a divorce." "No!" Her scream was shrill, piercing. "Noah, I was wrong. I really was." But her voice was fading, becoming background noise, like the traffic outside or the rain against the window. I turned and walked out. The corridor seemed miles long. My only thought, repeating like a mantra, beating in time with my heart. Make them pay. Make them pay. The parking lot air was cold and smelled of wet asphalt and exhaust fumes. I fumbled for my pack of cigarettes, my fingers numb. I lit one, the harsh smoke searing my lungs, grounding me. Just last night, Olivia had curled against me, her belly pressing into my back, whispering about our complete family. It was complete, all right, just not mine. My phone buzzed in my pocket, a violent intrusion. It was my mother. I stared at the screen, the pixels blurring. "Noah, has she given birth? Is it a boy or a girl?" I closed my eyes. How do you tell the woman who spent 3 years knitting booties and praying for a grandchild that the baby is a bastard? "Mom, it's a boy." "Wonderful! I'm coming right now." I hung up before I could vomit. The weight of the lie was crushing me. Then movement caught my eye. Across the lot, strutting toward the entrance with a bouquet of lilies wrapped in crinkly plastic, was Ethan. He saw me. He didn't hide. He didn't cringe. A slow, oily smirk spread across his face. "Noah," he called out, his voice dripping with faux cheer. "Congratulations on becoming a father." I flicked the cigarette away. It sparked on the pavement. I closed the distance between us in 3 long strides. "Ethan, you really are something else." "What do you mean?" He feigned innocence, but his eyes were dancing with malice. "You know exactly what I mean." I didn't think. I just swung. My fist connected with his jaw, a sickening, satisfying crunch of bone against knuckle. Ethan stumbled back, clutching his face, the lilies falling to the dirty ground. "Are you crazy?" he sputtered, blood appearing on his lip. "Crazy? I should be." I grabbed him by his cheap polyester collar, hauling him close. I could smell his cologne, musk and stale coffee. "You mess with my wife, put a baby in her, and ask if I'm crazy?" His expression shifted. The fear vanished, replaced with arrogance. "You found out? Fine, the kid is mine. But so what? We're in love, Noah, truly in love." "Love?" I sneered. "You have a wife, Sophia. Remember her?" "Sophia and I are just muddling through," he spat, wiping blood from his chin. "And Olivia told me you were just muddling through too. Boring. Routine." "Boring?" The rage felt like hot coal in my stomach. "I get up at 6 every morning to make her breakfast. I work myself to the bone. I tended to her swollen feet every night for months. That's muddling through?" "That's being a servant, Noah," Ethan laughed, a wet, gurgling sound. "Women want passion. I gave her passion. She chose me. Look." He pulled out his phone. The screen glowed in the twilight. A photo. A nude of Olivia. One she had never sent me. "She sent this to me. Once you divorce her, I'll divorce Sophia. We'll be a happy family. And you'll be nothing." "You think I let you win? What can you do? The deed is done." I looked at his face, swollen and smug, and felt a cold clarity wash over me. The rage crystallized into ice. "This isn't the end, Ethan. This is just the opening act." I got into my car, the engine roaring to life, drowning out his laughter. The drive home was a blur of streetlights, streaking like comets. I sat on my sofa, the living room silent as a tomb. The wedding photo on the coffee table mocked me, our smiles frozen in time, oblivious to the rot underneath. I picked it up, intending to smash it, when the doorbell rang. It was my mother. The joy on her face was unbearable. "Where is she? Where's my grandson?" I couldn't protect her anymore. I couldn't protect anyone. "Mom, sit down." I told her. I watched her face crumble, the light going out of her eyes as if I'd flipped a switch. I showed her the report. She wept, the sound of a mother's heart breaking for her son filling the room. That beast. Ethan, our neighbor? I'll handle it, Mom. Go home. I promise you I won't do anything illegal, but I won't be gentle. After she left, I didn't sleep. I sat in the dark, plotting. Step 1. The alliance. I messaged Sophia Davis on a social app. She was an accountant, quiet, gentle, a woman who baked cookies for the neighborhood block party. Sophia, come over. It's urgent. When she arrived, she looked confused, her eyes innocent. Breaking her heart was necessary collateral damage. I sat her down and laid it out. The paternity test, the photos of Ethan at the hospital, the chat logs I'd pulled from Olivia's iPad. Watching Sophia read the messages was like watching a building collapse in slow motion. She didn't scream. She just started to shake. 10 years! 10 years! She whispered. We need to burn them down, Sophia, I said softly. Check his computer. She returned 10 minutes later with a laptop, her face pale. Noah, look. It wasn't just an affair. It was a factory of deceit. A hidden folder revealed photos of Ethan with dozens of women, neighbors, strangers, and then the financial records. Chat logs with women he'd met on dating sites, pretending to be a single architect, scamming them out of thousands. $50,000 from this one, I murmured, scrolling through the evidence. Internet fraud. This isn't just a divorce case anymore, Sophia. This is a felony. She wants him dead, she hissed, a vein throbbing in her forehead. No, I said, copying the files to a USB drive. The click of the mouse felt like loading a weapon. Death is too easy. We're going to put him in a cage. The next week was a blur of legal consultations and strategic silence. I played the part of the grieving husband. Then Olivia called. She begged me to come to the hospital. She was in a regular ward now, looking small and frail. Noah, can we start over? She asked, tears staining her pillow. I'll cut ties with Ethan. I realized he deceived me. You realized? I laughed, a dry, humorless sound. Olivia, look at this. I showed her the chat logs from Ethan's computer, messages where he called her easy, adorably stupid, and mocked her performance in bed compared to his other conquests. As she read, the air seemed to leave the room. She gasped, dropping the phone. No, he said he loved me. He loves your gullibility, I said coldly. I'm filing for divorce, and you're leaving with nothing. You can't. We bought the house together. I paid the mortgage. You bought the curtains. The law is clear regarding infidelity. And the child? 0% match means 0% responsibility. If you leave me, she screamed, grabbing my arm, her nails digging in, I'll kill myself. I swear it. I looked down at her hand, then at her face. I felt nothing. The love I had for her had been cauterized. If you want to die, that's your business, I said, peeling her fingers off my arm. Don't perform for me. The endgame began with a phone call, an unknown number. Ethan's been beaten, a voice said. He's in the hospital. He wants to see you. I went, not out of mercy, but curiosity. He looked like raw meat, swollen, purple, ribs broken. Apparently some of the other women he'd scammed had found him. Noah, he wheezed through wired jaws. Help me.
Don't go to the police. I'll give you money. I don't want your dirty money, Ethan. I want justice. My wife, Sophia, she doesn't know. Doesn't she? I smiled. It was the only time I'd smiled in days.
The realization hit him harder than any fist. He slumped back, defeated. Outside the hospital, Sophia was waiting. Her eyes were red, but her spine was steel. "Ready?" she asked. "Ready." We walked into the police station together at 9 a.m. sharp. We handed over the hard drive, the fraud, the scams, the money trail. The officer's eyes widened as he scrolled. "This is substantial," the officer said. "We'll pick him up immediately." The court hearing was clinical. The room smelled of floor wax and old dust. Olivia sat across from me, a shadow of the woman I married. "Plaintiff requests divorce and total asset retention," my lawyer stated. Olivia tried to play the victim. "Judge, I have a child. I need a home." The judge, a stern man who looked like he'd seen every variety of human failing, peered over his glasses. "Madam, you broke the contract of marriage. You bore another man's child. You expect the plaintiff to subsidize your betrayal? Motion denied." The gavel banged, a wooden period at the end of a sentence. Divorce granted, assets to Noah, emotional damages $50,000 payable by Olivia. Olivia screamed. She tried to rush me, but the bailiffs held her back. "You heartless man, you'll regret this." I walked out into the sunlight. It was blindingly bright. I took a deep breath. The air tasted sweet. I packed her life into cardboard boxes, clothes, perfumes, the trinkets of our 3 years. I threw them out. I sold the jewelry. My mother helped, her face grim but satisfied. "I'm leaving, Mom," I said over dinner. "Jinx City, a new job. I can't breathe here anymore." "Go," she said, squeezing my hand. "Find yourself again." My friend Liam took me to the airport. We had a final drink at the terminal bar. The whiskey burned, but it was a good burn. "You look different," Liam said. "I feel lighter, like I just put down a 100-pound pack." I boarded the plane. As it taxied, I watched the city, the grid of streets where I had loved, lost, and fought, shrink until it was just a pattern of lights in the darkness. I turned away from the window. Jinx City was loud, fast, and indifferent. I loved it. I got an apartment with a view of the skyline. I worked hard. I buried myself in code and meetings.
One night, the phone rang. A number from the old life. "It's about Olivia," a woman's voice said. "She took pills. She left a note. She said if you don't forgive her, she'd rather die." I held the phone, looking out at the neon lights of the city. I swirled the wine in my glass. "She's in the ER! Noah!" "I'm not coming," I said. My voice was steady. "She's dying!" "Everyone dies. Her choices are her own." I hung up. I blocked the number. A week later, my mom called. Olivia was gone. I felt a phantom twinge, a ghost of a feeling, but it passed in seconds. I didn't feel guilty. I felt clean. 3 months later, the seasons changed. I was promoted. Life was rhythmic, peaceful. And then I met Ava. She worked in marketing. She had a laugh that sounded like wind chimes, light, effortless. We started with coffee, then movies, then long walks where we talked about everything and nothing. "You have sad eyes," she told me once, tracing my jawline. I used to, not anymore. Ava was everything Olivia wasn't. Honest, grounded, kind. We built a life brick by brick, based on truth. A year later, we married. A small ceremony by the sea in the Maldives. The ocean whispered against the sand, a stark contrast to the sterile hum of the hospital corridor where my old life had ended. When Ava told me she was pregnant, I felt a flicker of the old fear. But then I looked at her, glowing with happiness, and the fear evaporated. Our son Lucas was born on a Tuesday. I held him. He was heavy, warm, and real. I looked at his face, searching for traces of myself, and found them in the curve of his nose, the shape of his eyes. "He looks like you," Ava whispered, exhausted but radiant. He looks like us, I corrected. I stood by the window of the hospital room, a different hospital, a different life. I thought of Ethan, rotting in a cell. I thought of Olivia, buried in the ground of a city I no longer visited. They were ghosts, dust. I turned back to the room, to the warm light, to my wife and my son. I'm here, I whispered to them. I'm finally here. And for the first time in years, the silence in my head was beautiful.